Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening. You didn't have anything better to do tonight? Well, I'm glad you came out to have some fun with us. Fun, right? Yeah, that's right. So if you came for the hymn sing, this is the right place. If you came for the concert, this is the right place. If you came for the desserts, this is the right place. Okay, so if you came for like something else, I don't know, but you're welcome to stick around. So if you're new, what we do is we sing a couple of hymns at the beginning, then we have our special group come up and sing or do whatever they do for about a half an hour. Then we give them a break and we sing some more hymns in the middle. And you can remind me that we can stand up for one of them and you can stretch, right? Because I forget that ninth inning stretch thing. And then after we're done that, then our group sings for another half hour or so. And then we all go and eat some desserts. So, and you're all welcome to stay, right? You don't have to stay, it's just more dessert for us. But you're welcome to stay. All right, so let's kick it off with this. Here's the story behind Abide With Me. Henry Francis Lytle was an Anglican priest in Brixham, England. For most of his life, he suffered from poor health and would regularly travel abroad for relief. As was the tradition in that day, he developed tuberculosis and at the age of 54 came near to the end of his life. It was September, and the summer was coming to a close. It was time for him to travel to France to a warmer climate. But before he went, he wanted to preach to his congregation one more time. He was weak and frail, but managed to preach once more a sermon before his journey. That evening, he handed a note to a relative that contained the words to this hymn. And then just weeks later, in November of 1847, he passed into the hands of his Savior. There's 4 verses that we'll sing together. Well, you got to get all of them in, right? There was a pause. Let everybody get their breath. All right, so this one, there's a bit of a story here. Like a River Glorious. Frances Ridley Havergale, at the age of 3, she could read. At the age of 4, she began reading and memorizing the Bible. At 7, she began writing verse, verse, poems, verse. Okay? Her scholastic achievements included proficiency in several modern languages, in addition to Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. She had a thorough training in linguistics and music, and was a pianist and a singer. She was also a devoted Bible student in memorizing the New Testament, as well as the Psalms, Isaiah, and the minor prophets. Is there anybody left in the room that hasn't already been taken out of this, right? Isn't that amazing? Some hymns for which she wrote the words include, I gave my life for thee. Who is on the Lord's side? Take my life and let it be. So frail in health all of her life, Miss Havergale, at the age of 42, caught a severe cold, which caused inflammation in her lungs. When told that her life was in danger, she exclaimed, if I am really going, it's too good to be true. At the very end, it was reported that she sang clearly but faintly another of her hymns. Jesus, I will trust thee with my soul. Then, according to reports by her sister, she looked up steadfastly as she saw the Lord, and surely nothing less heavenly could have reflected such a glorious radiance upon her face. For 10 minutes we watched the almost visible meeting with her King, and her countenance was so glad as if she were already talking to him. Then she tried to sing, but after one sweet high note her voice failed, and also her brother commended her soul into the Redeemer's hand, and she passed away. She was a contemporary of Fanny Crosby. These two gifted women never met, but each was an admirer of the other. In a letter she sent by Miss Havergale to Fanny Crosby, she wrote, Dear blind sister over the sea, an English heart goes forth to thee. We are linked by a cable of faith and song, flashing bright, sympathy swift and long. One in the east and one in the west, singing for him whom our souls love best. Singing for Jesus, telling his love all the way to our home above, where the severest sea with the restless tide never shall hinder and never divide. Sister, what shall our meeting soon be, when our hearts shall sing and our eyes shall see? So this is Like a River Glorious, and there's 3 verses. Higher ground. Johnson Oatman Jr. was born in Medford, New Jersey in 1856. In his early life, he was actively involved in his family's mercantile business, insurance business, and then upon his father's death, he entered the insurance business himself. In 1892, he started writing gospel songs, and from then till his death in 1922, he wrote approximately 3,000. It's reported that Oatman generally averaged 4 to 5 new texts each week. Throughout this period of his life, receiving no more than $1 for each one of his songs, Johnson Oatman is also the author of such popular hymn texts, Count Your Blessings, and No, Not One. The composer of the music, Charles Gabriel, is generally considered to be the most popular and influential gospel songwriter during the evangelistic crusade decade. That's from 1910 to 1920, in case you were wondering. It's estimated that Charles Gabriel was involved in the writing of more than 8,000 gospel songs, as well as in the editing of the numerous compilations and hymns. Often Gabriel attributed his text to his pseudonym, Charles G. Homer. I guess it wasn't good to have 8,000, so you divided up against a couple of aliases. This was first published in 1898 in the collection Songs of Love and Praise, number 5. In his autobiography, 60 Years of Gospel Song, Gabriel recalls that he composed this tune after his return to Chicago in September 1892, and he sold this one for the grand sum of $5. So let's enjoy a $5 song, shall we? There's 4 verses. All right, is there a Constitution and ninth group in the audience? Please take your places. We got to give them a chance to get up there because one guy's got to crawl into that fish bowl. But they've been practicing this afternoon, so don't let them fool you. They've actually gone through this already once. It's not their first time. But yeah, we're really happy. I've tried for 3 years to get Dan Harney to get his band together. They all have something else going on Sunday nights. So we finally were able to, I guess, fit it in. Or somebody's missing them tonight, but they're at least here. So let's enjoy them.
best introduction I've ever gotten. That's fantastic. We're super excited to be here. I'll try my best to introduce everyone to you as the evening goes on, especially Cayman, who's locked away in the aquarium over there.
He's in there.
I know. But so I talked a lot about why songs were written. So I figured that Mike and I have that in common, right? We like the stories behind them. So this first song is a song that I wrote. And some of you will remember the Cade family. That was Don Cade was a youth pastor here some years back, and he was my youth pastor for most of my time here. And then he left here to become a missionary to Ireland. And so that afforded me a number of trips to Ireland over the course of my early life. And there's this mountain in Ireland, I can't remember the name, but there is a legend that if you pick up a rock at the bottom of the mountain and you walk up the mountain and put it on this big pile of rocks, then that, and Irish are very, superstitious and lucky and all that kind of stuff. That basically means that rock represents your future spouse, and it represents that someday you'll meet the love of your life. And so I know this is going to be hard for some of you to believe, but I'm not always the greatest in shape person. And so I say that I climbed a mountainside in this song. Really, I just walked up a pretty big hill. And I almost didn't. About halfway through, I'm like, my goodness, this is so, I'm winded, my heart was beating on my chest. I'm like, is it really worth it? The stupid rock. I'm not superstitious at all. And so I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what, I'm this far, I'm just going to keep going. And I finally got to the top after the whole group was on their way down. And the view was breathtaking. It was a view of the Atlantic Ocean, but on the other side. And it was so worth that walk up there. But I immediately thought, man, I wish that I would have had someone to share that with. And it may sound kind of corny, but I prayed that God would send me someone to share that with. And now, I met Jess a few years later, my wife, who couldn't be here tonight because she's got, we both have, 2 of our kids are sick right now. But I just remembered thinking how life was, even the most beautiful places are really not that big of a deal without that special person to share it with. And so this song was kind of birthed out of that, the idea that love is meant to be shared, and that in order to really see its impact, we have to sacrifice ourselves, we have to lay our own life down in order for love to really work. And we learn that from Jesus, of course. So this song is called When It's Love.
Walking up an Irish mountainside, you know, the one I thought where I would surely die, but somehow I made it to the top alive. And when I stood at the summit and took in the glorious view of an Atlantic side that I never knew, I prayed that someday I'd be seeing it with you. 'Cause when it's love, only real pleasure when it's shared. The pain is never bigger than the care. The thrills of life before cannot compare. When it's love. Well, this past July, I took our youth group for a day of coaster rides. I got strapped in and then I held on for my life. And I giggled like a schoolgirl the whole time. But at the end, I was amazed at just how quickly I got sad, because I knew I was the love the right I had. And now my joy in life is seeing joy in them. 'Cause when it's love, it's only really pleasure when it's shared. The pain is never bigger than the care. only really pleasure when it's shared. The pain is never bigger than the care. The thrills from life before cannot compare. When it's love, the decision to give freely you decide. It's never easy, but it's worth it every time. 'Cause there's no living without laying down your life. When it's love, when it's love.
Well, thank you very much. You guys are very nice. I'm trusting that you're not just here for the dessert. I can't say the same of all of my bandmates. I didn't mean to look at you, Cayman. While I'm here, I do want to introduce Cayman Personette is our drummer, and he's the one that you may not be able to see because of glare, but he's back there. And I met Cayman, gosh, maybe about 10 years ago now, over wings, because we have an intense love for chicken wings. And that's what God used to draw us together. And but he's been a good friend and a great bandmate these last couple of years. And we're excited to be here tonight and play with you. This next song is a song called Walking Away. We do have a CD that we will try to passively, aggressively get you to buy when you're up at the dessert place having pie. We'll just look at you sad holding them up. But the CD is called Walking Away. A lot of people from this church donated to help us make that, and really this song is about a time in my life where I really wasn't considering God much. I really had kind of walked away from Him, and I think there's a point in every believer's life when you realize what matters. And there was a point that I had come to, I think the Lord had drawn me to, where I knew that He was the only thing that mattered in this life. And that I was going to walk away from all the emptiness that I was living for back to Him. And so that's kind of where this song gets its meaning from. And here it is.
Like my daddy's newborn son, you hold my head up, hold my head up, as if I were legitimate. You hold my head up high. I'm walking away from the anger of my youth. Walking away to you, and all my friends that carry me to the rooftop, and on that rooftop they will tear the roof away as I take my bed and walk. Walking away from a crippled point of view. I'm walking away to you.
sin had made, and you still have not let go. I'm walking away from a useless need of proof. I'm walking away to you, to you, to you. Well, this gentleman to my left playing the accordion and the mandolin and the electric guitar. Pretty much anything that we ask him to do, he decides to learn. He does. He does a great job. His name's Ian Brown, and Ian is the worship leader over at Reformed Baptist Church in Franconia, and that's where Caden goes as well. So it's neat to have guys to be in a band with that local church is so important to. Because that's a huge part of my life as well. And this song is about a church that my wife and I were at for 6 years before we were called to serve here at Faith. And we just learned so much about community there. And when we left to come here, I really wanted to find some way to express to them how thankful I was for the role that God had them in our lives. While we were there. So I wrote the song for them. And it kind of is in the tradition of, if you read any of the New Testament letters, Paul is often thanking God for the remembrance of people. And when he talks to these different churches, he'll often say, I thank God for every remembrance of you. And I don't know if I fully understood that until our experience in that local church. And God puts people in your lives that are just huge parts of your life. And you know that you would have never grown to the place that you needed to grow without God using them in your life. And so that's really what this song is about. Are there any people that are native to like the East Greenville, Upper Perk area here? So a few of you might get some references to some geographic locations. First of all, it's hard to rhyme anything with Hosensack. But I think the Lord led us to a good place with that. But so you might pick up some geographical references with that as well. But this song is called "I Thank Our God for You."
Always thank our God for you.
There's some really good words next. Yes. It's funny, this song is about remembrance.
Always thank our God for you. And all that you have loved us through. In our afflictions, you cried too, and I always thank our God for you. I always thank our God for you. Your joyful prayers have served to prove will see through. And I always thank our God for you. From the Butter Valley pumpkin patch to the stony roads, the horse and sack that rumble loud with praise. When the mist above the reservoir like grace surrounds our kid-filled cars in heavenly embrace. We breathe in deep the chocolate air and lose our breath atop the stairs like letting go our wills. Dedicated newborns are and every new adopted child that screams the gospel louder than all of our frail voices can we thank. We thank our God for you. Oh, we thank our God for you. Oh, we thank our God for you.
Well, I have to say it is awesome to be here during a hymn sing because many of the songs that we sang remind me of my grandfather. And some of you that have been around at this church for years remember my grandparents, John and Ruth Worst. They always, for Sunday night service, they'd always sit right over there by that first window. Which ironically, when my wife and I started coming, she just chose that area to sit for us too. I think it's a little creepy. Anyway. But I remember my grandfather just belted. He wasn't a singer. He was a carpenter. But he would just belt out the hymns. It didn't matter that he wasn't a singer. He sang with all his heart. And that taught me a lot. And when we were home, he was a carpenter. He was working all the time. So he would always be in our cellar building something. In fact, some of you that have been here for years remember that there was like this, probably about 20, 30 years ago, there was a missionary box on the side of this church where it had like little pictures of the missionaries, and you push the button, and then we had a map in the back where it would light up where those missionaries were serving. And I remember that box being in our basement for months. It seemed like years. When he wasn't a fast builder at all, but he was a builder. He loved doing it, and that was who he was. And God called him home about 3 years ago now. And I wanted to just kind of write a song to express what he meant to me. If you know a little bit of my background, my grandparents raised me. I'm still not very close to my biological parents, but my grandparents stepped in when really there was no one else, and they took me as their own, and for all intents and purposes, adopted me. And so when they passed away, to me, it was like losing my parents. And I always thought it was amazing that my grandfather loved me so much. Because technically, and I'm getting a little, it's probably too TMI, too much information for everyone, but technically he was my step-grandfather. My grandmother had been married before, and her daughter had me. Well, you know how step stuff works. But anyway, so he was my step-grandfather, and he had just married my grandmother months after I was born. So if you can imagine being in your probably early 50s and looking forward to finally, I've worked my whole life, you know, I've met someone, we're going to spend our retirement years together, and then this baby comes along. And they took me in. And they took care of me like I was their own, when really they should have been thinking about retirement plans and where they were going to end up. But they weren't like that. And they always showed me love. And so I always kind of, without sounding egotistical, I always kind of likened my grandfather a little bit to Joseph in Scripture. Jesus' not biological father, his earthly father, because they're both carpenters and they both loved kids that by all like worldly standards they didn't need to. They weren't biologically obligated to, yet they did anyway. And certainly I'm not anywhere near Jesus, but I love seeing that biblical character in my grandfather's life. And so I wanted to write a song. I got to sing the song at his memorial service, and then I shared it with these guys, and they kind of took it to a kind of a joyful place. So it's not a song that is mourning the death of anyone, but it's celebrating the life of somebody that gave more than he received. So the song is called More Than a Carpenter.
For as long as I remember, he would always have some work to do. At the cottage or our cellar, he'd be wrestling a piece of wood, singing hymns above the speakers from the airwaves of his antique radio. Be it church pew or the basement, the difference seemed he didn't care to know. And I can just imagine when my grandma broke the news about that whole retirement. Well, the grandson's coming too. So he welcomed in a baby, held him as his own for all to see. And every day from then till present, he was more than just a carpenter to me. And I'm sure it wasn't easy. I'm responsible for one gray hair or two, but he taught me that a father is a man who does what others wouldn't do. And it's a strong reminder of another carpenter chose to love a young boy, though his blood he didn't share. And surely I am no Messiah, and neither one of us related perfectly. All the more I can see clearly, he was more than just a carpenter to me. It is said a hero goes where others run away. Turns out that my hero was the one that simply who gave more than received. I am blessed to sing this loudly. He was more than just a carpenter to me. So much more than just a carpenter to me.
Thank you all very much. That is the end of our first set. So we'll bring the Hartley boys back and sing some more songs together.
That was not bad for first half. Everybody all right with that? Good. There's nothing we can do about it if you're not, right? All right, so this next one, I'll be somewhere listening for my name. Raise your hand if you've heard this one before. All right, we got a couple. That's good. You have to belt this out with us. So this has been lost to the internet, right? Not in very many hymnals, certainly not in our hymnal today, but still a good one. The text and the tune are both usually identified as an anonymous American spiritual from traditional sources. Sometimes either words or music or both are attributed to an Eduardo J. Light, but it is more likely that he simply adopted the a cappella spiritual and put it to sheet music. We know it is before 1937 because that's the first time it appeared copyrighted as an arrangement by V.O. Stamps. So we've got 3 verses. Let's sing I'll Be Somewhere Listening for My Name. Don't stand up yet. Savior like a shepherd. One Christmas Eve, Ira Sankey was traveling by steamboat up the Delaware River. Asked to sing, Mr. Sankey sang the Shepherd Song. After the song was ended, a man with a rough, weather-beaten face came up to Mr. Sankey and asked, "Did you ever serve in the Union Army?" "Yes." And then he said, "Can you remember if you were doing ticket duty on a bright moonlight night in 1862? "Well, yes." answered Mr. Sankey. Very much surprised. So did I, said the stranger. But I was serving in the Confederate Army. When I saw you standing at your post, I said to myself, that fellow will never get away from here alive. I raised my musket, and I took aim. I was standing in the shadow, completely concealed, while the full light of the moon was falling on you. At that instant, just as you did tonight, you raised your eyes to heaven, and you began to sing. Let him sing his song to the end, I said to myself. I could shoot him afterwards. But the song you sang then was the song you just sang now. I heard the words perfectly. We are thine. Do thou befriend us. Be the guardian of our way. Those words stirred up many memories in my heart. I began to think of my childhood and my God-fearing mother. She had many, many times sung that song to me, but she died all too soon. Otherwise, much of my life would no doubt have been different. When you had finished your song, it was impossible for me to take aim at you. I thought, the Lord who is able to save that man from certain death must surely be great and mighty, and my arm of its own accord dropped limp at my side. Just now, when you were about to sing and stood quietly as if praying, I recognized you. I've wandered far and wide since that occasion. I've never found that shepherd. Please help me now find a cure for my sick soul. Deeply moved, Mr. Sankey threw his arms around the man who had been his enemy, who indeed could have ended his life. That Christmas Eve night, the former soldier found the great and tender shepherd as his Savior. This hymn first appeared in a children's hymnal compiled by Dorothy Thrupp in 1836. We don't know if Mrs. Thrupp wrote it, but we do know that William Bradbury wrote the music. He also wrote the music for Jesus Loves Me. He intended Savior like a shepherd lead us to be a children's hymn. But it turned out that us adults enjoy it too. So let's sing 4 verses of Savior like a shepherd. So stand up as we sing.
Thank you.
wear anybody out. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus. Louisa Stead felt the call to the mission field at an early age. That dream was hindered due to her frail health. At age 25, she married and a year later gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Lily. Several years after Lily's birth, it was a beautiful sunny day, and Louisa, her husband, and her daughter Lily went picnicking along Long Island Sound. While having their picnic, the Steads heard a scream. It was from a young boy. Mr. Stead ran to the rescue, and Louisa Stead and young Lily watched helplessly as both Mr. Stead and the boy drowned. It was in response to her grief. Stead penned the words, "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus." Louisa and her daughter Lily later moved to South Africa, where she later remarried, and they became missionaries. Her daughter Lily would continue that dream by also entering the mission field. Louisa Stead's life was a testimony to the faithfulness of God. The words of Stead's poem were put to music by famed musician William Kilpatrick and subsequently published in several hymnals, first in 1882. There's 4 verses. Let's give these musicians up here a hand, huh? What do you call it? Second half, second set, second something. We're going to finish it out with these guys, so let's enjoy a few more selections.
Before I forget,
Hi.
This is Jordan Small. If you go to church here, you'll recognize him. He plays bass on our worship team and sings, and he's been with us almost from the very beginning. He just missed the first practice.
Just once.
Just one practice. And he's wearing his best Gap sweatshirt for y'all. It's kind of your trademark.
That's my thing.
Yeah. Just a quick, in case you look at our name and wonder why do you guys call yourself Constitution 9th? Our church owns a building over on 9th Street in Percy. And when we first kind of got together, we asked if we could practice there. So we've been practicing there for close to 2 years now. And I grew up in Percy. And for the life of me, I always thought that building was on the corner of Constitution and 9th. So I remember giving people directions there, telling them, yeah, you can't miss it. It's on the corner of Constitution and 9th. Remember we had a missionary come and speak to our youth group, and he kept on getting lost, and I'm like, I don't know why you're getting lost. It's right on the corner of Constitution 9th. It's on the corner of Park Avenue and 9th. So when we were searching for band names, I was like, hey, what about Constitution 9th? That's where we practice. And it was Jordan that goes, that's not the real address.
Turns out you're wrong.
We've had many of those conversations. Turns out I'm wrong quite a bit. But anyway, that's where it comes from, Constitution 9th. This next song is a song called Side of the Road, and I wrote it years ago. Driving one day, I noticed a bouquet on the side of the road, kind of a memorial to where somebody had lost their life. And it just kind of made me think how many times I pass things like that without any idea of the life behind that memorial. And how many times I pass by people in general and have no idea what they're struggling with, no idea what they're going through. And so wrote the song called Side of the Road to kind of capture that essence of the people that we pass by all the time and just don't think any farther than that. And what will God have us do in those situations. So.
There is a bouquet on the side of the roadway, reminder of her life's end. How beautiful soul can spin out of control as quickly as it can begin. There is a feeling that drowns out the screaming, mourning what life could have been. There is a home that is empty and lonely, where all of the loved ones within. And I just drive on by. And I just drive on by. There is a man with an outstretched hand who is looking to find a way home, and an answer to why he is dying inside, destined to be all alone. No medication to ease his frustration is leaving him broken, confused. His thumb in the air is his one final prayer. It's all that he's got left to lose. And
make this awkward.
Oh, we're past that.
Oh, we're doing it. So this is a different type of guitar. And it sounds really cool, so here we go.
The baritone guitar is a little lower. So one of the things that we've kind of talked about as a band is to sing about kind of all aspects of life, just to be kind of honest about what we're going through. And one of the things that I have struggled with in the course of my life is depression and trying to find God, trying to go through those times of life when you're not on the mountaintop, you're in the valley, and God seems so far away. And we know that He's not. And we trust the truth of Scripture and not our feelings, thank God, right? But there are times that He feels very distant. And no matter how loudly we scream, it doesn't seem like there's anybody listening. And again, this isn't the truth. We know God is always with us as believers. He never leaves us or forsakes us. And that's the great lie of the devil, depression, whatever you want to call it, is that we're alone. And this happened to me on a camping trip once, and we were up near Lake Wallenpaupack, and I remember not being able to sleep and just driving to the lake and just walking along that shoreline and just crying out to God, like, where in the world are you? If you really love me, like, why can't I feel that? Why can't I sense that? And when you write a song that's kind of sad and kind of searching like that, as a Christian, as a worship leader even, like, I wonder what place that has in the world. But for as many times as we shared it, there seems to be always someone that can relate to it. You go, man, I felt like that. I know what you're talking about. And that's the reason that we sing it now, is that I do think that there's power in validity. There's power in us sharing those experiences and ministering to each other as a result of them. So this is a song that's birthed out of all of that, and it's called The Wallenpaupack. I'm standing on the shore of Wallenpaupack, the 5th hour of the first day of July, and listen as the water on the rocks crash. See a lonely fishing boat pass by, and standing here I can't help but remember walking on this shoreline as a boy. The wind has brought me here to my surrender, and I give anything to hear your voice. I cannot hear, and I cannot see messages in bottles sent to me. The wind is picking up on Wallenpaupack. The sky looks like it might give way to rain. The sun is rising slowly over my back. The world becomes a lighter shade of gray. I strain to hear your voice off in the distance, that faint familiar whisper on the breeze. I stand before you void of all resistance, praying just to find a little peace. But I cannot hear, and I cannot see
messages in bottles sent to me, and all that I fear, and all that I need, crash against the rocks of all my dreams. The fog has settled down on rolling Pawpack, and somehow found its way inside my mind. And I'd give anything to find my way back to the place where I had just a little time. Your faithfulness is so hard to remember. My failures are not easy to forget. I fear my prayers do not get any higher. The smoke ascending from this cigarette. I cannot hear, and I cannot see messages in bottles sent to me, and all that I fear, and all that I need, crash against the rocks of all my dreams. And I cannot hear, and I cannot see, 'cause all that I fear is all that I need, is all that I need. You're all that I need.
So about almost 4 years ago, God led us back to faith. I grew up here at this church and spent about 18 years away. And God called my wife and I back in 2015. And it's been a really, really cool journey. Part of that journey was, so I lead worship here at Faith. I lead the youth group here at Faith. And I also teach part-time with the school, with Faith Christian Academy. And I teach the book of James. And if you've ever spent any time in the book of James, he comes right out of the park talking about trials and talking about the things in life that hurt, that cause pain, that God put there. God put there for a reason. You're coming from my battery, aren't you? All right.
Oh, here, go ahead.
So there it was. All right, much better. And right around the time that I first started with this, and and I'm really starting to look into James and really starting to study it for the first time in depth. Friends of ours and friends of many of you here, the Johnson family in Florida, Ross and Lisa Johnson, their son went through just a horrible boating accident and suffered a severe brain trauma. And so you can imagine, like, studying a book about trials and a passage about these things that God allows into your life, and something like this happens, and I'm just watching this family go through like the most difficult thing. And one of the things that I just grew to respect and love about Ross, who's a pastor down in Florida, is with every update that he gave us, and I know that a lot of you read these and saw these firsthand. No matter if it was a good day or a bad day, or if it was a rough time, or if it was a praiseworthy time, the end of his post always ended with, "But God is God, and He is good." And I know Ross a little bit from years ago, and I know that James is his favorite book as well. And I know that his faith and belief in the goodness of God comes from those scriptures, that even though God puts things in our lives that are hard and are difficult, that He's a good God and we can trust Him. But it's during those times of trial that it's so hard to trust Him. It's so hard to trust in His goodness, but we have to. And so this is a song that I wrote, and if you're a father, you have a tendency to think about things from another father's perspective. And for Ross to go through something like this, I couldn't help but think about it from his perspective. So I wrote this song kind of as if it were me, and then kind of reached out to him and said, "Ross, I hope you're not mad at me for writing it like this. I don't want to be arrogant or put myself in your position or say things that you're not saying, but this is just kind of how I did it." And he was very gracious about it, and has been really supportive to us in recording this song and doing it, because I think ultimately it glorifies the goodness of God through their story and through others. And so this song is called "And He is Good." And I'm going to take a second to bring up the word to it because I butchered it during practice. So I appreciate your patience. At this point, we're all friends, right? We're family. I've already messed up lyrics in front of you. My guitar was out of tune in that last song. Oh, good.
Think if we had only stayed at home that day, or if I had just forbid him to go out on that lake, he'd be okay. We'd be okay. He'd still be okay. Life would be the same. I keep replaying these decisions in my head, as if a variable I could control could minimize this dread. Should have been there. Could have been there.
praise God. Thank you guys so much again for having us out. It means so much to be able to play at my church, and it's just a really cool thing. And we really appreciate it. We'll play one more song for you, and we kind of wrote this song as a congregational song, so it won't be very difficult for you to pick up the chorus of this and sing along with us. We'd really love that. But the song is kind of the perfect ending to the last song. Amidst trials, amidst pain, the joy of the Lord is our strength. And a few years back, I got to lead worship for a Johnny and Friends camp up at Spruce Lake. And the speaker, sometimes this happens when you lead worship, the speaker will just go, hey, can you just play something spiritual behind me? I'm just going to talk, just play something spiritual. And I'm not sure what spiritual sounds like sometimes. But I just started kind of noodling this tune, and honestly, most of the verses came from what he was saying. And they were in Nehemiah talking about the joy of the Lord and how amidst all the trials that Nehemiah went through, the joy of the Lord was still his strength. And he still used that as his source. And so that is where this song is from. So.
There will be trials, and there will be pain. When your strength is gone, His remains. Look to your left, and look to your right. You're not alone in this fight. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. By your side, you have been sealed, you have been free, you've been adopted into the King's family. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength.